Hello Uganda, good evening and welcome to On the Spot. My name is Patrick Amara. Tonight we look on the issue of service delivery because we know you the people give the mandate our leaders to lead, they manage our resources, and from the resources they have, they're supposed to give us infrastructure, health services, education, security, and much more. But today there are so many complaints because service delivery is being challenged, or it's not as good as you expect. So what is going on? How can we get better service delivery after we have given our mandate to the leaders to move our country forward? Welcome to the show On the Spot. My guest this evening, I have the Deputy Spokesperson of NUP, Mr. Isaac Mufumbiro. Thank you so much for joining us. Good evening, sir.
Alex.
Oh, I'm so sorry. How am I getting it so wrong? Alex Mufumbiro, thank you so much for joining us. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. I'm very humbled to be here this evening on this discourse of having our nation get better service delivery.
You know, when you put on this kind of shirt, you remind me of my friend Dr. Besige.
Yeah, Luzira, it is very unfortunate that there is a replica of the days some of us just read about. What took Besige to the bush is happening to him alive. History is repeating itself even before his death.
Is this what the musician sang about?
Yeah, because
okay, let me
so it is very, very unfortunate. We condemn the act of abducting, abusing all diplomatic rules, going into a country and abducting a person on frivolous charges. It is absurd and extremely absurd that our country has deteriorated to that level.
Alex Waiswa Mufumbiro, thank you so much. My other guest is former ambassador Henry Mayiga. Thank you so much for joining us and thank you for honoring our invitation. A warm welcome to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Patrick Amara. And of course, it's a very good opportunity for us to be talking about Uganda. And good evening to our listeners and the viewers. We are moving towards Christmas. I believe that the mood is now catching up with everybody. And I hope that we finish there very safely.
The mood is always catching up if your pocket is smiling. But if the pockets are not smiling, actually it can even be scary.
Absolutely, I agree 100%. But of course the pocket has to be filled up. We always aspire to have it filled up so that when the festivities come, we can be happy and conclude there.
All right. So, gentlemen, the discussion tonight on the table is about service delivery. But I just want to look specifically in the area of our road infrastructure, in the area of our schools, and of course on how we are able to mitigate against the vagaries of nature. Today, we have been hit by rainfall, heavy downpour, coming with floods, coming with mudslides, and these floods have killed. These mudslides have killed. And Mr. Mayiga, this is not the first time this is happening. Why is it that the government of Uganda, those who are managing our affairs, do not learn from the mistakes that we seem to see every day so that they can serve the people better, prepare them better, warn them better, so that these vagaries of nature do not come and then take lives?
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Kamara. But I just want to say that, of course, one of the biggest aspects, and as far as I'm concerned, where the government of Uganda has to be emphatic, is the issue of defense and security, because it's also a service. Because if we don't up our game in as far as defense and security in the country, then that means that we will end up having so many problems, even much more than what we deserve or what actually does happen in our country. So it's extremely important for us to emphasize that we...
Yeah, but as you emphasize, Mr. Mayiga, where is the defense and security of the 15 in Ulambuli who have died? Where is the defense and security of the 100 in Ulambuli who are missing?
Mr. Kamara, I'm coming to that one because I wanted just to emphasize the issue of defense and security, because the country has to be secure first. But there were times in this country when it was extremely difficult for us to talk about a secure, peaceful and stable country. Right now as we speak, because of the safe hands of President Yoweri Museveni, it has been possible that this country actually enjoys the three: peace, security, and stability. Of course, it is debatable as to whether those things are happening at 100%, but that is happening. Now, getting back to the aspects, that, I mean, the issue of Bulambuli and the rest of them, there was another one in Pakwachi, of course, and these are calamities that are natural in nature, and that's why this government actually created the Ministry of Disaster Preparedness, so that these things can be handled as sufficiently as possible. And the Baganda put it rightly and called those things Evacuation. Yeah, Evacuation, because these things don't actually warn you that they're going to happen. And of course, in the past, you have seen the government of Uganda, the administration of President.
But wait a minute. How can you say some of these things actually are not Evacuation? You actually know, because we know that every year there are going to be heavy rains on Mount Elgon. People are going to die in Bulambuli. We know every year there's going to be heavy rains in Kasese River. Nyamwamba is going to burst the bank, and then people will die on Nyamwamba River. Why is it that? I agree. Yeah, but some of these things really can be seen, can be known, can be prepared for. So the Ministry of Disaster Preparedness that does not prepare, it's baffling our minds.
No, of course, it's a very interesting debate, because Uganda is not really the only place where these kinds of things happen. Of course, it is unfortunate that we have lost lives. There was an engineer of UNRA, the Uganda National Roads Authority, who actually died as a result of those natural disasters. Of course, that is unfortunate, but quite a number of other people have been affected as a result. But you and I remember, and of course every Ugandan remembers, that there was a time, for instance, when something happened in Bugisu, and people died as a result of those mudslides, but these people continue to live in those places, and the government has been emphatic on ensuring that these people are moved and taken to safer places to stay. Kiriandongo here, and they even constructed houses for these people. But of course, when they were taken there, the rest is history. When they were taken to stay in Kiriandongo and given housing and a stipend on which to survive, people actually went back to those places. So, and you can't force people. I mean, they are accustomed to those hills. I've been to Bugisu a number of times, and I know exactly how the terrain in that part of this country look like. But the government has tried. It has tried in a number of ways, and but people will always trek back to Bugisu because they are. You know, there is always that level.
Well, everybody has an attachment to their ancestral land. But let me go to Mr. Alex Waiswa Mafambiro. I know at the moment Ugandans never gave you the mandate to lead. Somebody else is leading, somebody else is managing the resources, and you're looking there, and probably you're the government in waiting. But if you were to assess on what is going now in terms of service delivery, and we shall go to other areas, education, health, road infrastructure. I started with this because there's a catastrophe. Ugandans have died, Ugandans are missing. What do you make of this?
It is purely the definition of this government, failure. If you look at what happened in Chitezi, if you look at what is happening in Bulambuli, it's not happening for the first time. If you look at what happened at River Nyamwamba, it is all not happening for the first time. These are events that are recurrent. He has just been misleading the public that the resettlement program was efficient. It was not. You know, if you agree with an entire village that you will move them, resettle them, and then you move 5%, stop there, and then whatever you have promised them is not substantively fulfilled, the rest have remained back home, then it's natural that one will trek back home. East or west, home is the best. And then if you find as government that it is a challenge for you to manage moving these people, then you ought to have think out of the box, because what is government? Government is thinking out of the box on the challenges of its people. Think out of the box. Find better solutions that can safeguard the people with these occurrences. One of them is telling you that they actually don't know that this will happen. Me and you who are not in government know that actually even next year, around this time, these occurrences are possible. That means that it would have been incumbent on all of us as a leadership to find solutions to how, one, these people can settle, those who can settle around there without being affected, or fulfill to them their aspirations in the resettlement plan. Move them, complete cycle, whatever has been agreed, and have it habitable. You know, if you're moving somebody from convenience of history, historical existence, it's different because they are forfeiting nearly their culture to go and resettle somewhere else. And we as Ugandans, the Bantu and our tribes, we are used to resettling, especially when we are moving against a particular epidemics or force majeure. So it would be very, very important for any sane government that is in love with its people, first of all, to fulfill the aspirations of the people in terms of the dangers that they face by improving their health sector and even the response.
But
the response
Mr.
to disaster.
With a lot of respect to the people of Bulambuli and Bududa and the Elgon area, what kind of responsibility do they have, especially when they have been warned, especially when they have told you not to leave some areas, and some areas of the mountain have developed big, huge cracks. People have died in Bududa, in Bulambuli before, and the warning comes. Don't they have also a responsibility to take heed of these warnings?
You see, they do have that responsibility, but between me and you, you know that even moving people, migrating people, is expensive. By they themselves, these are people with families. You're asking somebody with 5 children in this economy to move. It's not easy. Sometimes the option of prayer and godly chances to survive the calamity are more than being desirous to move even where you will not find food. That is where government must operate.
Why is it that we find that nature seems to be hitting us back, striking back so ferociously than ever before? Because when we were young, the Elgon Mountain was not having these disastrous landslides. Isn't it also part of what, of how man has been able to harness nature in Bulambuli in a manner that is not sustainable, but of course also very dangerous?
The limitation should not be to Bulambuli. You know that there is a lot of mismanagement. There is a lot of illegal research in different areas of the country. So it is very, very absurd that government cannot enforce. We have a whole police, we have a whole unit that is supposed to enforce matters of nature and matters of climate and environment, but they do not act where they are supposed to act because they look so much into the politics than what is eating up and killing the country. The force that they will use in politics is not the force that they will use when they are making decisions that are going to affect our people. And then also the big shots who take charge of maneuvering the plight of those people in all these times is also something that we must discuss as a citizen.
You know, Honorable Mayiga, the people in the Elgon areas in Bududa and Bulambuli have faced apocalyptic situations before. For those who were in Bududa, I think in 2010, for them that was their Armageddon. They destroyed, gone in one go. And subsequently we've been seeing such landslides happening with people dying. And yet we have a government that has the mandate to warn. You have the scientists who are going to tell you. You have the meteorologists who are warning you. Why would we continue to lose people if government cannot be decisive and say, get out of here? Because the slides are coming.
You know, there is something in, should I say, political science, which is called statecraft. Now, statecraft is extremely interesting because, yes, theory would tell you that let's go and force these buggies out of those mountains and then take them to Kiriandongo. Fine, that's okay, you can try it. If you are in the game of ruling in this country. And if
you talk of statecraft, but there are some individuals who are crafting.
But you see, yeah, statecraft is extremely important because we must talk about it. Because what is theoretical in these things is particularly different from what is practical. Now, what's practical is what government was trying to do, to convince these people that, look, gentlemen and ladies, it's extremely important for you to leave these areas because it is dangerous. I've been to those places and I know how dangerous those places are, because you find somebody, for instance, with a garden of matoke on a cliff. and barely, really almost falling down. But the person is stuck to that piece of land and they don't want to leave. And even if you actually moved them, like the government of the administration of President Yoweri Museveni did, and they were taken to Kiryandongo, people eventually, even if after being given a stipend on which to survive, people still trekked back to Bugisu quietly. And they never went back to Kiryandongo. Even, you see, the government had actually put up even houses. And people continue to go back to those places. And because of that attachment they have, the cultural, traditional, historical, it becomes extremely difficult for these people actually to be convinced to leave Bugisu and go and live in other places. So statecraft is extremely important because, in my view, it's more practical. That look, you can take only the donkey or a horse to a water place, but you can't force that donkey to drink the water. Yeah, so you try as much as you can to ensure that these people are actually taken to safety, but they will resist that because they have a cultural, traditional, and historical attachment to Bugisu. And so it becomes extremely difficult. But I also wanted to raise another point, Mr. Kamara, because in my view, these disasters have not happened only this time. They've been there. I'm told in 1966, I was 1 year old by that time. In 1966, Masaka was cut off, or Budu, if you want, was cut off from the rest of Buganda. So somebody couldn't come from Kampala and go to Masaka, or they couldn't come from Masaka to come to Kampala. It was extremely difficult because around Rueda, there was a lot of rain. These days, I think we call it El Nino, and people were cut off. And I understand some people even drowned. So these things have been happening for quite a bit of time. But you see, how does the government respond? I think that should be our preoccupation in this discussion.
There's a time in the first Bududa incident, when the government responded, they actually wanted even to go and get the body, recover the bodies. They flew in their heavy-duty graders, caterpillars to move, the earth movers. Do you know what? They were abandoned there for years. But those machines could still be stuck on the mountain as we speak.
Once the cameras leave, work stops.
Once the cameras, the cameras...
You're playing for the gallery.
Of course.
There's rubbish. People have not, dead bodies are still...
But where are they? Because you see, there's what we call... Because, people can play political games about these deaths, which are happening in extent.
No, you want to doubt that?
I think when you were talking, I never interrupted you. I think we should be orderly in this talk show. What I'm saying is that, you see, we always play politics about these things, but you see people dying. And that's where, whether you're in the opposition or whether you're in the government, all of us should be sensitive to what is happening to the people of Uganda. For me, that is point number one. And I don't care whether you are coming from the opposition, all of us are Ugandans. So when people are dying as a result of disasters, all of us should be concerned. So, but of course, Kitezi, whether Kitezi or Nyamwamba or Bulambuli and so on and so forth, these kinds of things, the government has always responded. The government has always responded. Of course, somebody is going to argue that that is reactionary, but the government has responded. And I am sure that there is that commitment by the government to ensure that these things are handled as adequately and as sufficiently as possible.
Are we incapable of listening to the scientists, understanding the climate change, warning the people to avoid yearly or annual disasters that we see? Are we incapable of at least warning people in those specific areas? Isn't that what Mr. Mufumbiro calls failure that describes you?
Of course, the Department of Meteorology in this country has always been giving out these tips about what's going to happen, the El Nino and all these kinds of things, and they have always been warning the people in Bugisu that, look, it is safer for you to stay in the lowlands rather than, of course, staying on the hills or in the hills of Bugisu. Those warnings have always come. If you have been very passionate about reading in the newspapers and also many times on the radios and TV and so on, these warnings have always been given. But if you want us to become autocratic, dictatorial, and we just got to grab people from the mountains, I think we can just discuss that one. Because how else can you handle people who you have warned that, look, it is safer for you to be away from these areas, especially when it becomes extremely rainy and wet. And people are not going to listen to you. What do? Do you go and grab them and put them on trucks and take them away? This is, in my view, what we should be discussing. And I believe that even if it wasn't President Yoweri Museveni's government, still another government would grapple with these problems, just like in 1966.
So in effect, you're saying it has happened to them because they never listened.
No. I mean, it's a continuous process to make sure that you actually tell these people that it's extremely dangerous for you to live in those places. And therefore, it is better that you actually leave those places and go to safer ground so that you can survive. And
no,
besides that one, the government is always ready.
Mr. Mufambiro, if it were in your powers.
Mr. Kamara, because when you look at Kitezi, the government came in and offered support to the people who are affected as a result of the Kitezi problem.
Mr. Mufambiro, if it were in your powers, how would you do it as NUP to avoid such apocalyptic scenarios on the Elgon Mountain that is Yali?
First of all, we are cognizant that there are things that happen. In my statement, those who care to listen, I use the word force majeure, acts of God. We are cognizant of that, but then there must be duty. First of all, the Ministry of Disaster Preparedness should be equipped, fully equipped with machinery in response to what is needed. You have just stated that the machinery, once it takes a few days and the cameras leave, work stops there and nothing goes further. People forget about it until another occurrence. Therefore, equip, have a substantive budget for the Ministry of Disaster Preparedness. I can tell you that it will still take days for that response to humanity, because the priorities of government are in politicking and politics rather than being there for the people. Health. If you look at the existence, the closeness of the biggest referral hospital from Bulambuli to probably Mbali, it's quite a distance, given that even they do not have the roads. You said that we'll discuss that other infrastructure later. So the priorities of government, and then also take on meritocracy. Meritocracy, because the reason we work in government as a result of merit in places where it is supposed to be merit, then we will not have these challenges, because meritocracy brings solutions. But the choice now we are having is talking about 1960s, but the people who are here in the 1960s have now been recycled back in government, some of them.
So, okay, now that he has brought the issue of health, I understand there's a health center, I think it's called Buluganya in Bulambuli, where the injured have gone and, you know, they're basically trying their best to provide services. But as you know, those health centers, 4 and 3s all over Uganda, really. When you go there, if it is not crowded, you don't have the medicine. The health infrastructure in Uganda has been limping for some time. And I do not doubt the Ugandan medical officials, the Ugandan health workers, I actually call them miracle workers, because they go every day, they try their best, and we're proud sometimes even lives are saved. But to see the tools they have, the condition under which they work,
Mr. Kamara, I thought you were going to say, first of all, thank you very much to the URM7 administration for putting up actually those health centers 3s, 2s, and 1 and 4, and so on throughout the country. Because health center 3s, for instance, are supposed to be in each one of the sub-counties in the country. And the government really has done a very good, commendable job in as far as that is concerned. The problems associated with those health centers notwithstanding. Because I think it's better that actually...
those centers, if they in themselves were human beings, they would be admitted in intensive care unit themselves.
I wanted to make an assumption that assuming that there was absolutely no health center in these sub-counties, then what would be the situation like? And then we would be here probably in this studio talking about a totally different animal. And that animal would be called that the health centers are completely absent.
Okay, you are lucky, so because until the other day you were an ambassador staying in one of the most developed countries on earth. But if somebody falls sick today, yourself, God forbid, or your loved one, and you are admitted in a medium hospital in Kampala for just a week, the medical bill that they can give you, Honorable Mayiga, will take you back to the village and you sell your land, because that's the reality today. Are you aware about that? People like yourselves, probably, God forbid, if you are sick, maybe you will be evacuated and taken to Aga Khan Hospital or somewhere in India and be treated back. But the rest of Ugandans will have to go in these hospitals. They'll give you a bill of 200 million, and then you'll not be able to get it. If you have land, you'll sell it. That is the reality.
No, I agree.
Each one of us is in perpetual vulnerability, even if you think you have a little bit of money, because you cannot afford that money here in Kampala.
Well, Mr. Kamara, I agree 100% that, look, yes, we have problems associated with the health sector in this country. There's absolutely no doubt about it. But by virtue of the fact that we have these so many health centers,
But there's a problem.
16 regional referral center hospitals and five national referral hospitals. For me, that is a plus. Now, the next thing that we should be discussing is how to equip these very facilities, because that's now, and that means that probably we as nationals, including you, Mr. Kamara,
that when Ugandans fall sick now, and also if of a certain level, we go for car fundraising, car washing fundraising exercises to look for money. Why? Because our hospitals cannot afford.
Mr. Kamara, I'm coming to that one. But first, recognize the fact that, look, there are these health facilities in the country, extremely important as far as I'm concerned. Now, equipping these health centers, these hospitals, is the next thing that we should be looking at, and that's extremely important for us. So, of course, you've been talking about people being thrown out of this country.
So you serve a government. You serve a government that has been in power for 40 years. You serve a government that has been in power for 40 years.
I want to help, of course.
Even though at one point you're on the other side of the aisle.
I know. Even at one, yeah, of course, that is very true.
Before your Damascus turnaround.
The problems of
Before his Damascus turnaround.
The term that we use to describe people who actually are thrown out of the country is called medical or health tourism. That happens throughout the world. Let me tell you something, that there are Europeans, for instance, from the UK, and Americans who actually fly to India for medical treatment, and it's called medical tourism. It's an international, it's a global phenomenon, and that nobody's going to stop it. So what we should be discussing again, as far as I'm concerned, is the fact that we need to equip these health centers, these hospitals of ours, and that should be the next thing. But otherwise, these health facilities have been put across the country, and we should be striving. And I believe that
I pray hard you don't go for that tour. I pray for you don't go for that tour.
I've been doing that one. When I was in China, I broke this arm. I broke this arm. Because I was working at the Uganda embassy, I broke this arm and I went for.
So how is that? But I was breaking an arm working at the Uganda embassy.
I wanted to, of course, even those in government, unless those who are doing either illegal, illicit behavior in office, they can't afford the medical bills here. But people are diplomats. We have now a challenge. They are putting up strip clubs in Muslim countries, casinos, diplomats, to look for a living, better living. They cannot sustain.
That is a subtle attack on Reba Mayiga, right?
No, I've not told anybody, but this is what is happening. You know that we have ambassadors who have been declared persona non grata for those offenses, putting up strip clubs, casinos, bars in Muslim mosques. So for them, they will not understand what you're saying. But I can tell you that Chris Bariomos, the Minister of Information, fainted in his home village. As they were hovering a helicopter to land at a health center, as you said, it was in the sick bay itself. There were no buildings, there was no anywhere to even land the helicopter, and it was said that if you take this man in, the hospital is as more dead as this one who is not responsive to anything. They had to fly him to Kampala because that one had chance to be flown. Now, if we are talking about reality, there is no way governments, they are governments of UPC, because they talk about the problem. He's now talking about problems of UPC, cherishing Museveni, but he was in UPC. They were in charge of the mess, and now the mess has been recycled back. That is why we have inefficiency in service delivery. But the hospitals we are talking about are dilapidated. The infrastructure is a block. But look at the standards of from 1960 to where I was not, but can look at the footprint of Mulago, Jinja Hospital, and look at other places, even where they don't have referral hospitals. In this century, to talk about a clinic as a hospital is deadly.
Actually,
Actually,
presidents, when they would have an emergency, they would be taken to Milago.
Yes.
You know, Dr. Bote was treated at one point in Milago, right?
Of course I know.
I was not around. I was not around.
Both of us have read about it.
Those who have history fear to say it now because
you
they
can
are
imagine
the battered side.
a Ugandan head of state is seeking treatment in Milago, and Milago is doing a fantastic job. I suppose even Amini went to Milago.
So the challenge...
But can a minister now even go to Milago?
No, the child of the president was flown to go and give birth in Germany. And if you remember, the president said that he could not trust the doctors here. Now, that is the type of country that we are in.
So, Honorable Mayiga, if in this...
if you look at the budget...
In this question... Yes.
If you look at the budget, as I said, with response, because if you know that you have such disasters, then equip the Ministry of Disaster with the most meritorious personnel, let them be well paid. But up to today, you know that we have a challenge with the enrollment of the doctors. They are crying to be facilitated with less than 5 billion shillings to have all those that have gone through training go for internal, all who have gone through education go for internal training and then come out to serve the population. It can't happen. But they will find 3.5 billion, 4 billion to give to DP Block and convince them to be to their side and also speak like those who are in UPC then.
Ambassador Mayiga, if we take a mental flight back into the 60s, and for example, we've read about that, where President Obote had an issue, a medical requirement that he was admitted.
He was actually shot in the mouth.
Yeah, all right, shot in the mouth and taken to Milago, and the Milago hospital was able to respond to that, such a very serious injury, and Milago was supposed to work on him. But today, a state minister in this government cannot go to Milago to seek help.
No, that is not correct. Of course, when any minister or a government official is taken to Milago or any other hospital, they will not announce to you. But I can assure you that quite a number of people from this government who have actually gone to Milago sick. My own brother, before he passed away, he went to Milago for medical attention. He was Attorney General of this country. He didn't go abroad. He went to Milago Hospital, and I escorted him. So I don't know what you're talking about, that these people who are in government cannot go to the hospital.
No,
they actually go there.
We see about $150 million is spent on what you call medical tourism.
The reason why I'm giving an example of my own brother, may his soul rest in eternal peace. He was a whole Attorney General in this country. He went to Milago for treatment, and the doctors did a fantastic job in Milago. So when we are talking about these things, of course, there is always a choice. I mean, if somebody feels the pocket is deep, yeah, fine. Even if they're not in the government, they have quite a number of people in this country who have actually sought, including religious leaders, who have sought medical attention outside this country.
Let me tell you,
you're not going to stop. Whether it's this government or President Yoweri Museveni,
let me tell you what I saw a few years back. I visited 2 hospitals. One of them was Kawolo Hospital in Lugazi. And this is what I saw. Very crowded. At that moment, not even running water. Remember, we were talking about a medical facility with all these infectious material, and there's no running water. And they had dug pit latrines everywhere, and almost, running out of land where to dig more pit latrines. As if that was not enough, just on the entrance of the theater, autoclaving machines, they are using a charcoal stove to sterilize those equipment because the autoclaving machines had died. And that was the situation.
If I may add,
it's addressed to me or him?
If I may add,
I'm giving you the reality.
An information of another reality of NTV just recently, you gave on the headline a hospital in Impomode, no, a health center in Impomode. I think it is in a district around Masakambala Road. I'm not very sure, but the place is called Impomode. Where
I thought Impomode is in Busoga.
Yeah, that's why I was very attentive as I was listening to your news. But later I discovered that Impomode is not the Impomode I was thinking about. And this health center does not have access to water. The water that the patients are accessing is water that is collected. Patients, they have to go and collect water to, I think, a well, and then it is shared by animals and what and what. So itself is contaminated, but it is what is supposed to be used by the health facility. So that is where we are.
So the issue of health in this health sector What stands out for me, and what I have respect for, are the health workers, because I'm sure they do their best for Uganda. They try their best. But with all respect, the
their salaries have been stepped up.
But the tools you have given them to do their work, Honorable Mayiga.
Why don't you also mention the stepping up of their salaries? Because this government has actually stepped up their salaries. Absolutely, they have. And you know, it's just like in a home that you have this money pass. And you say, gentlemen and ladies, you tell your households that it's going to be possible, for instance, to eat meat once in a week or twice, depending on whether the pockets are deep, and so on and so forth. So what I'm trying to say here is how big is our money pass? And I'm not trying to brag about this kind of thing because it's a very serious matter. So that we can try as much as we can, and as probably the money pass can permit, to put as much money in the health sector as much as we can. There is absolutely no doubt about that one. I'm sure that is in the interest of every Ugandan, whether you're in the opposition or any government. If we get enough money, and I hope that when the oil and the gas begin to spill, then we will be in a big position to ensure that
there is enough. I think there is enough money to serve our needs. There's not enough money to serve our greed. There's too much greed.
3 trillion.
Is this really the issue of this a small budget, a lack of money?
No,
if that money was handled better in a frugal way, and if you plugged all stop the hemorrhage of public resources, there would be some money to do something that is better than we can see now.
Of course, Mr. Kamara, I agree with you that these are concerns of everybody in this country, to make sure that we have enough funding for the health sector, for the education sector, for defense and security. And as far as I'm concerned, actually defense and security is number one. Because there was a time when this country was actually a pariah state. It had gone to the dogs because we couldn't even come to discuss politics in these studios the way we are doing it today.
This is very interesting. When Uganda was a pariah state.
You see, when you are given an opportunity to speak, I don't interrupt, so that you can give, because we are here as mature people, so that we can discuss these things for the benefit of our country. What I'm trying to say is that, you see, my hope is that we are going to raise enough money out of the oil and gas sector, especially when it begins to spill in 2025, towards the end of 2026, so that we can recoup much of this money back into these sectors, whether it is education, whether it is health, whether it is infrastructure development, whether it is defense and security. And for me, as far as I'm concerned, defense and security is number one. Because if there was no security, peace and stability in this country, Mr. Kamara, I can assure you, and even Alex here, that we wouldn't be in this studio. You remember where we have come from, because people forget so quickly. I am not saying that we shouldn't improve the situation. I am sure 100% that every Ugandan aspires to make sure that things improve in this country, so that we can all be better.
Mr. Alex Waiswa, he's talking about looking forward, so hopefully that maybe in 2025, 2026, the oil money will start flowing. But isn't there a problem there? Because we have a huge debt of almost over 90 trillion. Hasn't that money, hasn't that oil been mortgaged before it comes out of the ground even?
You see, they preach, first of all, they clandestinely use the technique of escapism to declare defeat and promise hope. They don't want to admit that they are defeated. They want to promise hope, and the hope is premised on what may not even be existent in the near future or in the near existence of their existence, because they have failed. The issue should be the appropriation of resources. We have the resources, but where are our resources appropriated? Are they appropriated to service delivery? Where have they scored 80%? Let's go to the SDGs. They have been declared sad. Some of them have stagnated, they have not even started. Others did not even incubate. 1, 2, 3, I think are 9, they have not started. I'm talking about their own goals. Let's go to the MDGs. It's disaster as well. The Millennium Goals, have they gone to where they have promised this country? Now, it is the issue of priority. Money has been infested in longevity of the dictatorship. One cannot ask us to remind ourselves of the dirty past when he has been recycled back to government. It's a shame. Because if you are admitting that you are not sufficient enough in the past where you are part of government, you are serving in this government, how sure are we that we are not still eating from the same factors of diminishing marginal utility? The lack of meritocracy. We are talking about the health sector. Let's take a scorecard. How many hospitals have been built? Monies that have been borrowed on government grants. Look at how much money was borrowed and the timelines given for Lobowa Hospital. Even if it happens tomorrow, it's a wrong contract. It is ambiguous. A lot of government spending, extra supplementary budgets being passed on the same, and there's nothing that is meeting the cost. Look at the vaccination cost of COVID that we spent in thereafter. Get our priorities right for the citizenry. I'm telling you, Kamara, he's saying they cannot be autocratic to ask people to leave. If we were going to have Bobi Wine in Bulambuli tomorrow, the entire machinery, okay, let me not say Bobi Wine, let me say Besigye, let me say Lukwago, let me say Waiswa, going to do anything in Bulambuli tomorrow. You know what happened to Zake during COVID? He was cut in 2 pieces. Court has even declared the same. So if we are discussing service delivery and we are discussing health, look at the personnel, the people who are managing the ministry. They are nearly all relatives. The decision making is not is bent on a particular side. Therefore, even the priorities of the expertise that is supposed to handle the medical profession is not sufficient. Well, he is speaking about the salaries, and we would have appreciated all this. We're all excited about the increment of the doctor's salaries, but you know that even this has been done selectively. It is not an omnibus umbrella that all the medical fraternity, because if you talk about medical personnel, you're not only speaking about the doctors, you're talking about all those that have decided to be at the front line of serving lives. Those that are cleaning the hospitals, those, is it clandestinely being done as they are speaking? No. Now, the strikes we have had, the medical strikes we have had, the forefront of them has been tools. The doctors here are very sufficient. I am a person who will give credit where it is due. I have my wife was diagnosed with cancer. She got 60%, 70% of the medical fast attendance from Mulago hospitals and other private hospitals here in Kampala. The scorecard of the medical personnel is extremely high. I would not want to divulge into the other challenges and the cost that comes with it. But if you go to the Cancer Institute now, you will cry, Kamara. If we talk about cancer, you know the pain people go through. But people are lying down on the floor in Mulago, now as I speak, in that excruciating pain of cancer. And they're not going to sleep there for a day. Not 2 days, not 3 days, not 4 days. And these people are coming from Bulambuli, they're coming from your village, they're coming from Busoga, they're coming from everywhere. So as we preach medical tourism, we ought to understand that as it's even very, very wrong as leaders to be here and discuss about medical tourism that is only accustomed to politicians. When you are in government, you discuss wholesomely about the plight of the majority citizenry, not those that have had the opportunity to serve in government and loot the government down.
So, Honorable Mayiga, why haven't you thought as a government to give us some kind of public health insurance scheme so that because there are countries with a smaller economy
like Rwanda
that have done it?
First of all, a health insurance scheme is contributory. The government puts some money for you and you also put some money for you. So don't assume that these 46 or so million Ugandans are going to be easily insured unless the money passes as deep as we want it to be for the country. And that's what takes me back to what I was saying, that there are competing needs in this country, and nobody should gloss over the fact that your money pass probably is still smaller. And of course I agree that the issue of corruption is a very big one, and there will always be those people who are making off with some money from the money pass that belongs to the government. and therefore that reduces the prospect that we should actually ensure that these things are done to the latter and the best way possible. There's absolutely no doubt about that. But having said that one, I just wanted to go to the manifesto of the NRM, and there was Manifesto Week the other day, and it's a very good point of reference for us as to what exactly has been happening since we had elections in 2021. Because these things have been spelled out in a number of ways. I mean, they're talking about infrastructure, they're talking about education, they're talking about health, they're talking about the oil and gas, they're talking about mining, they're talking about defense and security. The details are there. It's a very good point of reference, which I would encourage every Ugandan to go and read, because there are quite a number of details there of the things which have been achieved. He's laughing, but it doesn't matter, but because he doesn't want to refer. You see, what I was in the opposition, and I know how to behave, how people behave when they're in the opposition. I know, exceeding.
Somehow you saw the light. Somehow you saw the light.
Of course, nobody, I can assure you, nobody who is in the opposition, especially, let me not go into the details, is going to be very ecstatic about what government does. The job is to shoot down even the very good things that government does. If tomorrow, you had your chance and you spoke, I think, for more than the time which Mr. Kamara gives me, because he keeps interrupting me, and I don't aspire to have that kind of discussion, because we should always be given equal time so that we can respond to each other and have a fruitful discussion, because all of us are Ugandans anyway. But that manifesto, which the people of Uganda voted for in 2021, is extremely important, and as far as I'm concerned, it's a very good point of reference where we should dig out most. I was bringing out the issue, and nobody wants to speak about it, defense and security. For me, it's very important, because if there was no secure environment in this country, even sitting in this studio wouldn't be possible. I can assure you, it wouldn't be possible for us, because I mean, for me, I've inhabited this country since I'm now 60 years old, and I know what has been happening, where we are coming from as a country. When it wasn't even possible to have talk shows, were there even studios? Were there even private radios and TVs? They were not there, you remember. But this government has afforded us these things. They have brought the TVs, they brought the radios, both private and public, where everybody can go and they speak whatever they want, including bashing this very government, and nobody's going to scratch them even by a particle. That is now a possibility in this country, extremely important.
You should know that you are losing touch with the reality. Over 80% of the Ugandans who are listening to you are not inclined to that kind of story. They don't even understand.
Fine, that's okay, but because these are brutal facts.
Yeah, when you say you fought, yes, you brought peace, yes, but that story, they don't understand it.
No, but
so the Gen Zs, the people of Alex, do not even understand what you're talking about.
How are you?
But because you are doing what you're supposed to do.
Yes, Mr. Kamara.
So you're doing what you're supposed to do.
How I wish you would go sector by sector, and then we bring out the statistics. Extremely important, because you see, when we theorize about these things, I think then it would be the situation, the environment would be absolutely effective.
I think now it is so true that for people like Honorable Mayiga and his colleagues in that group, sometimes we need to listen to you once in 10 years, because the story is always the same. Well, there's somebody whom I know in this country that you go to a function, you need to listen to him once in 10 years, because that speech is going to be the same at least 90%.
I agree, but what are we talking about?
You agree.
What are we talking about? All right, Mr. Kamara, what are we talking about?
Can we respect now, as you have taught us? Alex. Thank you. Now, first of all, he's now agreeable to them relaying the same thing. We will go into examples. If we are talking about a scorecard of efficacy on all the sectors, you know where we would be. We do not just bash government. This is the reality on ground. This is the reality on ground. As I have said and stated, you go and benchmark from just the hospital in Mulago here. You go to Jinja Referral Hospital. You go to Masaka Hospital. Masaka Referral Hospital, the last time I heard, they were not having power. It had been cut off. They did not also have water, about 500 million shillings. So if we are looking at service delivery, and you continue to bring back the history, and I have stated, and I wish to state it again, that if there was reason for why the NRA went to war, it has reoccurred again. The reason he fought and removed your government that you are serving then was because you are not holding free and fair elections. Now it is the same. And even then, when you are in government, there were people who were speaking for that government, and General Museveni chose to go to war. Today you're glorifying him because we are used to being in government. Now, the facts that are on ground, be it in the education sector, and first of all, if you want to talk about prioritization of sectors, look at the funding. How much is being given to the health sector? How much is being given to the education sector? How much is actually going into the actualization of what a young person, a new child going to school should be equipped with in these modern times? You're talking about security. Is our country secure? We should stop thinking about those who have a voice like Waiswa, and not forget that we have political prisoners today who have spent, now there are those who have been released with the brackets of being forgiven, who spent 4 years without being charged properly in a court that is legitimate and can have the processes being taken to the latter. We have people being murdered in cold blood. There's an NRM apologist, the late Isma Ichuli. He was murdered in cold blood. Up to today, the gun has not been found.
We have those who have disappeared, like John Bosco Chibalama.
We have people who have disappeared, like John Bosco Chibalama, just like Benedict Ochiwanuka disappeared. Now, if you want to take me back to the history, me who was not around, we have people who are murdered in cold blood, like Dan Cheune, by bullets because of their political affiliation. In Kajansi, there is a story of a young man who was arrested by police officers, beaten to pulp for wearing a red color that formerly belonged to the UP, to him. But he was being for red. They did not ask whether he was a heir to a former UPC diehard. He was beaten because at the time it is now the National Unity Platform putting on red. So it's not about the reason of speaking when you are in the opposition is to speak for what is supposed to is to be the option of the reality of what they are doing, those who are in charge.
All right,
and that is why we are very hard on matters of health.
Alex and Henry, gentlemen, hold on to your points because we are going to take a break, and on the spot, we'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching On the Spot. My name is Patrick Kamara. My guest tonight, I have Ambassador Henry Mayiga and the new deputy spokesperson, Alex Waiswa Mufambiro. And we're discussing service delivery. Gentlemen, I want us to look into the issue of education. There was a report, Ambassador Mayiga, that about 1.8 million children are enrolled in primary one. But by the time they go to sit for PLOE, more than half of those are nowhere to be seen. And sometimes I'm asking myself, where do the Ugandan children go in between P1 and P7?
Well, if you're looking for faults in the education system, definitely you're going to find them. There's no doubt about that. You're definitely going to find them. And in any other sector.
I'm not going looking for faults.
That is the opening remark. The second one, which I want to make, is that we've been having UPE for quite a number of years now. We've been having USE for a number of years in this country. We have of course, tertiary institutions, which are also offering, and they have been massified. We have the University Scholarship Scheme, which is also taking on quite a number of people, and quite a number of interventions by government, which have actually massified education in this country. If somebody wants to find out how many people who have gone through this education system, the figures are still there also in the official documents of the NRM government. They are there, including in the manifesto.
The question is, are you aware that a big number of children who enroll in primary one do not reach P7?
I'm aware of that.
Does that concern you? So do you, as a government, do you want to find out what happens to them? Why do they drop out?
As a government, somebody, of course, who is in charge, especially the Minister of Education, should be finding out exactly what happens. But despite that, there have been efforts to make sure that actual education in this country is massified as much as it is possible. And depending, of course, also on the money pass. It goes back to the argument of the money pass, you know. So so much so that everybody is given equal opportunity to access an education in this country. And I believe that this administration of President Yoweri Museveni has done a very commendable job, as I've said. You talk about these interventions, you talk about the UPE, of course you're saying that quite a number of people also drop out, fine. We need to find out exactly what the reasons are. The USE, the University Scholarship Scheme, and the multiplication of the tertiary institutions in the country that offer vocational training. Those have been multiplying, and I have the figures in the manifesto of the NRM of 2021, which the people of Uganda actually voted for. They didn't vote for his manifesto. They voted for the manifesto of the NRM of President Yoweri Museveni.
Permit me, I use your example.
Yeah.
You're a man from Bulemezi.
Yes.
And the few people I know in your family, including your late brother, who was a formidable Ugandan, former Attorney General. Another one is a formidable preacher, a Reverend Senyonyi, and yourself, an ambassador. You know, people were born in the 60s. They were able, your parents were able to raise men and women of substance of that level in the 60s there. Can the same people in Bulemezi today be able to have their children aspire to become what they want to be from the schools there and punch through like you did? It is extremely difficult.
Mr. Kamara, I don't want to believe that once we went through the education system of the country, that was the end. There are still many more people. I remember, let me give you an example.
The centers of excellence are in isolated places. A child in Kisoro would dream to become whatever they wanted to be. Just like anybody in Gulu, like anybody in Navumali High School, or anybody in Kigezi. Today, the centers of excellence in education are concentrated in some areas. So
I was going to ask you, I was going to give you some information. And then, of course, you brought another question and concern us as a result of what we've been talking about. I was going to tell you that, look, when I was at university, I was a student leader, Makere University for that matter. And being a student leader gave me an opportunity to know how many people came from Luweero, because that is my district of origin. And I was happy to note that we had over, from Luweero district only, we had over 200 students from Luweero district. And those are not the last ones, because if you go to Makere University and check how many people have come from that very district and have reached university and are graduating from university now, fortunately. There are so many universities. Because when I was at university, there was only one university.
I'm not doubting your figures, but what I'm trying to tell you, Luweero deserves much better than that.
That's precisely, Mr. Kamara, that's what I'm trying to say.
Luweero deserves much better than that.
The last people who came from Luweero district as graduates and as responsible people in this country are not myself only, not the two brothers of mine that we're talking about. There are quite a number of others that
I know them, and some of them are my friends. So I'm only saying Luweero deserves much better than now.
Of course, like any other part
and so he's changed the way it comes. And so he's changed the way it comes.
Like all the rest of the parts of the country, they deserve those kinds
Alex, what do you make of the education system, the service delivery in the education sector?
Of course, it is also an intensive care unit, our education. I'm among the last beneficiaries of remnants of the setting of the other governments because I went through Victorian Primary School. And I'll use that as a basic. At Victorian Primary School, we had 2 playing fields. We had all sorts. We had basketball, we had volleyball. The school was on about over and above 15 acres. Because when you entered there, you did not enter just for the blackboard. You were taken through what you should learn as a child, talent search, among others. If you go through a deep analysis, since they have been in charge, you will find that today things have changed. Responsibilities of policy are with government. Now I can have 3 rooms and they are classrooms and it is a school. look at the literacy level. You were speaking about P1 to P7. Take the scorecard of P1 to P3. Literacy efficacy in that class. It is more, it's about 45% success. So the 55% is failure. That is literacy efficacy, P1 to P3. Get to the 50% of those who drop out by the time they do PLE. But before they do PLE, how much money is being given to a child per year on his education?
As capitation grant?
Yes. 2,000, not more than 2,500 shillings. And this money does not even come on time. I may not be very exact with the figures, but I know that it does not go more than 5,000 shillings. Now, if you look at the needs, the schools that we were in Victoria Nile Primary School, there was the teachers' quarters. Those who are teaching us were subjected to having housing free of charge, and close, promiscuity to the school is very close from so many other social dangers. Today it is impossible. The teachers are living in Nansana and they are teaching Kampala parents because there is no policy. That is at the policy level of who is responsible for what and progress of the education sector. Now let's go to government. Has it, up to today, yesterday there was a video, I hope that colleagues will share it again. A young man nearly died as he was crossing a swamp. He was lucky, just lucky that elders quickly intervened.
He was holding on the papyrus?
Yes, he was holding on to the papyrus. You saw the video?
I saw that. It was very scary.
How dangerous in the 21st century can that be? In a country that has been ruled by the same continuity of government for 40 years. You see, if you're talking about a government that has not had continuity, but these have been around for 40 years, you want to expect them better at 45, you must be daydreaming. Now, and that was a primary kid. If you look at him, was it around P3?
Probably.
P3, P4? Now that is primary. If you look at, you go to secondary, of course, literacy efficacy is 15%. Now, he is clearly giving you what they are about. They are about mass, no quality education. They are about mass. Of course, the English language is very, very, very clandestine. It assists in giving answers whether they are right or wrong, but it's beautiful to listen to. He's talking about mass education. But this is
massifying
the education, not speaking about the quality.
Quantifying.
Education. Yes, the qualitative aspect that we're supposed to speak towards. Now, it is in this century that somebody will even look at those who fail to do exams. People fail to do exams because of examination fees. In the 21st century, examination fees.
All right. In the interest of time, I'm going to ask one question and then we will be having our closing remarks. But, you know, Ambassador Mayiga, have you realized that in some instances, in a public government-aided school, one is forced to pay fees, sometimes much higher than a purely private? And sometimes I ask myself why. Teachers are paid, infrastructure is paid by government, and all these things, but sometimes you find a public government-aided school, you're required to pay much more, I'm not going to mention some of the names, than even a purely private.
I'm not aware of that because I've had my children go through university, all of them have finished, they're graduates, and I've not seen that kind of thing because private schools are much more expensive in this country than I've had my children in public schools, like in Gayaza. Yeah, my daughter was there. And I've also had my children in private schools. But what we've been paying, what we paid...
So you're not aware that somebody could pay much more in Gayaza
private schools
than
are much more
private
expensive.
School.
Look at the private scheme at Makerere University. Because there was even a study which was carried out. And the figures speak a lot. And if people cared, because like, for instance, the medical profession, if somebody is doing medicine at Makerere University, they would have to pay something over, well above 15 million Uganda shillings. But as we speak, because many of them, or most of them actually, are paying are being paid for by government. And the few who are actually paying for themselves, tuition, are paying something like 7 million only. But the study which was carried out, because I worked with Makerere University for 24 years, the study which was carried out was talking about something that was close to something like 20 million for a private student at Makerere University. And so I'm not aware, because I've had, as I've told you, children in both public and private schools. And what I've seen is that in public schools, children actually pay much less than what we pay.
I've told you, there are some public,
because, for instance,
government-aided secondary schools where they are charging more than a purely private. Those cases are many.
Well, that one I've not come across, but I'm telling you my very examples, because I had a daughter, Taiba, which is a private school on Entebbe Road, and I was paying much more, actually double, than what I used to pay at Gaza High School. So I don't know which schools you're talking about. Maybe you're talking about probably things which are, I don't want to use the word fictitious,
well,
but that's what I've seen.
Some of those schools, since now it's a business for them, I don't want to be accused of economic sabotage. But in the interest of time, what's going to be your concluding remark, Mr. Alex Waiswa?
I think it is with the education sector, the Minister of Education should be out yesterday. The policy makers have not done as well. We have questions with the syllabuses now. We have questions with what curriculum that the children are supposed to take on. There's a big, most of these traditional schools that he's talking about, a few of them are still available. Many of them are limping. Namasagali now is a bush that was left to die. I can also tell you that many of these schools are indebted hugely across the country. They are also on drip, because you'll find them 700, 400, they were purely mismanaged. So there has been, like all other sectors, as we were speaking about service delivery, we have not been done. We have had a very unfortunate scenario that for the last 45 years, for the last 40 years, Uganda was in a mess. If you look at the road from Jinja to Kampala, the Mabira stretch, you would shudder whether actually we have a government.
Thank you, Alex. Honorable Mayiga, what's going to be your parting shot?
Well, I just want to appraise ourselves about what has been happening in this country. For instance, the inception of the UPE, the inception of the USE, the student scholarship scheme at the university level, and in 1986 we had only one university. As we speak now, we have 40. So if that doesn't really ring a bell in people's heads, that actually things have been on the rise in terms of massification of education in this country. Of course, there are issues to do with quality. I agree 100% that is something that we should address as a government. But in as far as massification is concerned, this Yoweri Museveni administration has commendably done this job of education, and it has been equal to the job.
Henry Mayiga, Ambassador Henry Mayiga, thank you so much for the time you have given us. Mr. Alex Waiswa from Biro, thank you so much, gentlemen, for your submission. Thank you. I know you guys, it's not that you disagree or hate each other, you just love your country more, and everybody wants to take it at another level from a different direction, and which is okay. And for you, the viewer, I want to thank you for the privilege of your company. Next time when we come here, we shall be talking about the Dubai Minority Report. Good night and God bless Uganda.